Hey everyone, welcome to today's session on industry perspectives around collaboration, automation, and scale in the world of UX design and product development. My name is Andrew Hahn. I'm the data and product operations lead here at Zeppelin. And today I have three wonderful guests with me. I'll introduce them one by one. First, we have Sophia Puff Story, the co-founder at Three Sided Cube. We have Yuting Wang, the senior UX designer at Applied Materials. And we have Limzer Lagrimas, Senior UX Designer at Chipotle. Welcome, everybody. Really quick, can we do some quick intros around your background and what you're doing these days? And maybe you can let us share with us, what your next travel destination is. Puff, let's start with you.
Amazing. So real name is Sophia, but everyone calls me Puff, and I'm the co-founder of Three Sided Cube Inc. Our mission at Three Sided Cube is to change millions of lives for the better, and we do that through designing and building what we call tech for good, so technology that has a positive impact. So we're a team of designers, developers, project managers, product owners, marketing, sales, you name it. We've got a team in that space, and yeah, we design and develop tech for good. A next travel destination. Oh, I wish I could say somewhere exotic, but I'm off to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday next week to see a friend.
Yeah, nice and chilly. Great time of year to visit. Well, great. Thank you, Puff. So glad to have you here. Yuting, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you're doing these days, and what your next travel destination is, please?
Yeah, so I'm the senior UX designer at Applied Materials, and I work on enterprise applications using the semiconductor manufacturing facilities to improve process and production. And and I work with very talented teams across the globe to create the best possible user experience for our customers. And my next travel destination, I wish to go to Australia and Papua New Guinea because I spent nearly 10 years there and met some great people. I would love to go and see them again in the near future.
That's super cool. I can't say that I know very many people that have visited Papua New Guinea, so that's very cool that you're going back there. Thank you so much. Glad to have you with us today, Yuting. And Limzer, you're at Chipotle. To let us know, what are you doing these days and what your next travel destination is.
Sure thing. Once again, my name is Limzer Lagrimas. I've been designing for roughly about 15 years now. Started off as a graphic designer, which led into being a UI designer. Nice, easy transition there. And then now I'm doing UX. So worked in many different industries, such as the automotive, real estate, ad agencies, video game industry, and now I find myself for the first time in the food industry as Chipotle's senior UX designer. It's awesome working over here. Love it. It's a change of pace for sure. As far as where I'm going to be traveling next, my wife and I recently just renewed our vows, and our first honeymoon, we went to Bora Bora. Loved it so much that we're going to do another overwater bungalow in the Maldives coming this June. So looking forward to that.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations on your vow renewal. And
Thank you.
is it with kids or without kids on your trip?
Oh, for sure without kids.
It's already a vacation on its own.
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. So glad to have you with us today. One of the main topics we're going to be talking about today is around, how the three of you from very different industries design for specific problems and different audiences in your industries, as well as, talk about some of the best practices for design and development that you've found during your time in this current industry, in your current role, and in previous roles. So, with these very diverse range of industries, right? We have semiconductors, we have basically native digital with UPuff as an agency, and Limzer, you bridging the divide between digital and real world with Chipotle restaurants. What makes designing for your current industry different compared to potentially previous industries or your previous experiences? Puff, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so it is quite different. So we're digital. Typically, we concentrate very heavily on mobile apps. And I would say because of our mission, we work very heavily in the not-for-profit sector. So something that I don't think will come as too much of a surprise is the fact that most of our clients tend to be fairly risk averse. Okay. Which is a challenge in some respects when you want to try something new, something different. They do like to use proven, tried and tested methods and of design. So that's not a bad thing. It just means that we can't be as perhaps adventurous as we might be on some other clients in other sectors. The other thing I think is quite interesting is this particular sector, they're very collaborative. So they will happily share what works and what doesn't. And I don't know about anyone here today, but in my experience, certainly amongst the private sector, people tend to be maybe a little bit more competitive. They don't really share the secrets as much as I find that they do in the not-for-profit sector. So yeah, there's two real insights there into that particular sector.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. It's definitely seems like it's a rising tide raises all boats type of vibe there. So that is nice. Ting, what about you? You're working in semiconductors. What makes designing in the semiconductor space different compared to other industries you've been in?
Yeah, so for me, it's the sheer amount of information that we have to put on the screen and number of configuration available to the customers. And to put it in perspective, I'll use shopping experience where I'm used to in the retail industry. So I'll use shopping experience as an example. Hopefully we can put that into perspective for our audience. And, normally when you buy an item, a shirt online, you choose the style that you want, the size, the quantity, and then you go through the checkout process. But imagine if the seller has the capacity to let the customer tweak everything down to the threads. For instance, they can choose a shirt template to best fit their body and lifestyle. And every section of the material can be made with different materials. And each material has its own set of colors and patterns. And some of the materials may be more delicate that requires different way of processing, perhaps by hand instead of manufactured by a machine. So if that's the case, then the system has to notify the customer that it might take a longer time to produce. So every configuration adds a layer of complexity to the shopping experience, and every layer has its own logic to follow. So the finished product is very unique to the customer because they're giving the granular controls of the shirt production, basically from the template material to processing. So for me, it's very challenging and very rewarding at the same time because we're able to take something so complex and make that into something more intuitive and user-friendly for the customers.
Interesting. What an interesting set of challenges you have. Thanks for that explanation. Really appreciate that insight. And Limser, how about you? What makes designing for the fast casual restaurant space different compared to other industries you've been in?
Simply put, just working in a product environment within the food industry is definitely more fast paced. There are always more menu items being launched, more internal and external tools to optimize. And then there's always consistent usage of our products as well as the consumption of food, which is nice because we always have access to data, which helps us improve our products and iterate upon. So that's the main difference. It's a fast-paced environment.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's so interesting that you have like that feedback loop that's so quick. With digital native stuff, that feedback loop, you can look at the data right away, but to have that feedback loop be the food and the experience in a restaurant, super interesting. So, given that things are so fast in your industry, and more broadly speaking, what is one trend that you, Limser, are following in UX design right now, either in your industry or just more broadly in the design space?
In regards to UX design, I would say a good trend that I'm definitely following is personalization. With personalization, we can cater to each authenticated user their specific needs. So, for example, let's just say a homepage hero image, the first image that someone sees on our website. If they're a vegan and we know that, why not promote more of the sofritas option for protein rather than the steak, garlic guajillo steak? So it's just utilizing information like that to really showcase to the user what's more important to them rather than stuff that they wouldn't be interested in. So personalization is key.
Very cool. Yeah, especially with the volume of data that you have access to as well, right? It's interesting challenge. Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that insight. So, across all these different industries and all these, different challenges that you all face, everyone's building product together, right? You have product managers, QA folks, developers, everybody involved at different stages, different functions. So I want to learn a little bit more about what the relationships are like on your product teams, right? You have the kind of idealized product triad of the PM, lead developer, and the designer. But what does that collaboration look like on your day to day? Puff, if you can enlighten us.
Yeah, if I could use a phrase, I think for us, certainly it's ever evolving. Okay. And what I mean by that is our product owners were once client strategists, and that changed. And then our designers, you have different types of designers. Then you have, different types of developers, and you have different characters in that. So, some work better together than others, but typically that triad, the triangle, is absolutely key. And I think we have a challenge in that internally we work on those relationships and make sure that they're very collaborative, the communication is optimum, and the personalities get on. And I think that's really important. But the added challenge that we have is we have clients that have their own internal teams that then have to work with us. And sometimes, we use different tools, we have different ways of communicating, we lean on different platforms. So for us, it is always ever evolving. We're always looking to continuously improve as an agency ourselves. And, it's not our way is always the right way. We're learning from some of our clients, and our clients are sometimes learning from us. So I think it's having an open mind and being open to continuously improving the relationships between the teams.
That's great. I really like that because, with you as an agency working with so many different people, everyone's got a different style of working. You have to be adaptable and fluid. Your own team may have a preferred way of working, but now, you have to accommodate different processes and approaches. Very cool. That, as a product operations person, that it's a fun set of challenges to solve for, I think. Limser, how about you? What is that? What do those set of relationships look like on your product team? How do you all work together?
We work well together, honestly. It's been easier to work with everyone due to the amount of ways that one can communicate. So with our internal chat, we're using like WebEx Teams. Email is always open. No one ever turns their phone off. Let's put it that way. So you can always leave a voice message if you need to connect with someone who's been busy. So I'd say communication has been the key, especially with some people working remotely, some people in office having this hybrid working system. Communication has definitely been something that we've utilized, and also just having a process, paying attention to our Kanban boards, especially using meetings, more required meetings in the morning, like stand-ups, so everyone gets on the same page at the same time. Everyone knows what work they need to work on, and that's how we get through our sprints easily.
That's great. Yeah, communication, documentation, but I think more importantly, decisions that have been made asynchronously, how do we get that documented to communicate it to everybody else, right? And so, with that, cross-functional collaboration being so important, that documentation, getting things through, especially in the stages of design delivery, we know there's still a ton of challenges there. And I know Yuting, you work with a very globally diverse set of collaborators. What are some of the common challenges that you see today with working with such a spread out team?
So like many other companies out there, our team is 100% remote. So communication is really, really important. So there's the first challenge would be the time difference and very small window of direct communication. And the second challenge would be more industry specific, because I think many designers went to school to study arts, design, or anything related. Not many of us are equipped with semiconductor domain knowledge. So there was a huge learning curve for me at the beginning before I become productive. So I, super grateful to those who kind of educate me along the way. So thanks to those people. You're watching.
I think one of the most important abilities or skills to develop is when to say, I don't know, and defer to somebody else, right? So with that being said, so what sorts of tools and practices have you implemented to help mitigate some of these challenges with regards to, fully remote work, asynchronous communication, communicating design intent? What are some of the things that you've put in place?
So one thing that we do, like Limser mentioned, we do daily stand-ups. So I find it beneficial to our team. The meeting can be like 10, 15 minutes just to touch base what we're doing. Or it can be 1 or 2 hours to discuss something more specific. And these big and small conversations keep our project on track, because on-time delivery is super important to us. So that's one way of that we apply.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And then Limser, you alluded to some of this previously around that collaboration, you guys having stand-ups and stuff. Are there any other like tools and practices? Can you go into a little bit more detail around potentially some technology infrastructure you put in place, or some of the operational practices you put in place to help mitigate some of these challenges?
Yeah, most definitely. One thing that we added to our process before the beginning of any feature or any project that we're working on is we start off with the information architecture. That's a huge key because it shows not only the happy path, but also all the unhappy paths. So devs like to find out, they like to see wireframes, but at the same time, they want to know, what does this do when this happens? Because that question always comes up a lot. So one of the tools that we always use, especially during the handoff or how we hand off, is Zeppelin. Zeppelin is great because of the fact that we include the information architecture along with the wireframes, along with the UI, the high fidelity designs. So the great part about that is during handoff, we do have a meeting, but after the meeting has been held, communication is always still relevant because people can leave comments. So we love that feature, especially because you're able to tag certain individuals and it goes directly to their email, and boom, we can answer that right then and there. Especially the comments are really useful because sometimes the annotations aren't clear enough. So utilizing Zeppelin as our handoff tool has been highly helpful.
That's great to hear. And then, with everything that being said, you don't have to say Zeppelin, but what is the one change to your product design or development process that has had the greatest impact for you and your team?
Fortunately, I am going to say Zeppelin, and here's the reasons why. When the UX designers complete their work, they upload it into Zeppelin. We love this labeling feature, which we now utilize, and that's called Discovery. And then when the UI team is ready to work on the wireframes, when they upload into Zeppelin, we use the label Design. And then finally, once those UI designs get approved and it's ready for handoff, those get put into Zeppelin as well. And we then use the label development. The reason why this is such a big impact to our process is because the development folder is now what we use as our single source of truth for all of the company to view and see the work that's going to be implemented, because we don't want to see stuff that's from the discovery folder or the design folder, only from the development folder. So just utilizing that simple feature has made a huge impact to our process, and has made we now have a single source of truth for where to look. So that I'd say Zeppelin has definitely come a long way for us, for sure.
That's great. Really appreciate that. That's wonderful insight. And do you take Venmo or PayPal? Just kidding.
That's a good one.
So let's talk. The measuring the success of design, right? All this stuff is super important. We're building things, for business, right? And so, how do you all go about measuring the impact of design? Like, what kind of metrics do your teams track? Yuting, can you give us some insight there on the semiconductor side of things?
Yes. So I use flows extensively, and to map out the current state of the flow, to see all the step and touch point user takes to complete a task. And we look at it as a team to identify the problem areas and friction points, and these are the opportunities for us to make improvements. And later, when we compare the future state and the current state of the flow, and we're able to see if the decision we make as a team does it move the user closer to the desired outcome. And it is a great way to show and tell the results visually and clearly in Zeppelin to stakeholders. And it is also the measurable changes in KPI that we're presenting.
Very cool. That's a really interesting way of looking at that. Kind of like the how the design process itself is the kind of feedback loop there. So that's very cool. Puff, what about you? Working, digitally native, I'm sure there's a lot, and with a lot of different clients. How do you measure the impact of design?
I would love to just give you a one size fits all answer. There isn't, the truth be told. And I think for us, we have to stay very focused on the outcomes and the impact. Okay. And it's quite often, the continuous improvement, or even just getting a project off the ground, like an MVP, you have to be so focused on, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve as a team? It's never just a design change, right? Because you've got the developers involved. It might be, product owner. Like, there's a whole team of people that go into doing this. So an example I might give is the work that we're doing with the American Red Cross, the blood donor mobile app. And the outcome of the work we do is typically the number of blood donation appointments booked per month, per week, per day, whatever. But then the impact would be the number of lives saved as a result of those appointments booked. So for every blood donation you make, you can save up to 3 people's lives. That's the impact, right? That's the goal. That's why everyone does what they do for that particular project. So it's remembering to stay focused for us on outcome and impact. And it is hard. It's not the same for every project, for every client. It does vary massively. And there is so much data that you can look at and examine. But I think by staying very focused on outcome and impact, it does make it much easier to measure and monitor moving forwards.
I love it. Outcome-based road mapping is one of the things, hot topics on my mind these days. So very glad to hear that you are putting that into practice. That's very, very cool. So hey, thanks for sharing that. Very, very interesting example as well. And so we've talked about the breadth of your various industries and experiences, and everyone's got like a very interesting and unique take on design within your specific industry and function. And so I love how varied it is. And so, taking that lens and looking to the future, and with the mission to develop a great user experience, what do you think good product development will look like? What are going to be the key ingredients to create the next generation of excellent user experiences? Ting, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think we can see many more and more companies are incorporating AI and machine learning into their applications to serve the market demands in every sector. And if you attended Adobe Max last year, you'll see majority of their features are powered by Adobe Sensei, AI from Adobe. And design used to take days and hours, and now it's down to seconds and minutes, which is incredible. And there's no difference in manufacturing. So I think we'll see more fabs adopting this technology to better use the data they collected in the factory to train the models to get better logic, parameter values to improve wafer outputs.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Puff, how about you?
I'm going to probably go more old school and say more focus on feedback from end users, right? And having that baked into the process more than it currently is. So I would imagine, and it is a sweeping statement, but most organizations, most companies, most teams will have set points in which they're going to users, asking for feedback, and it's prompted, and it's, sometimes it's not always truthful. I just think there needs to be a better way to capture true user feedback, not just from the data, right? The data is important, and I'm not dismissing that, but I just think there has to be a better way of capturing real people's thoughts, opinions, and also suggestions, because quite often they do have some very valid suggestions that we don't always get sight of at the right time in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very interesting set of challenges there, but I think very valid set of challenges to address. Very cool. Appreciate that. And Limser, how about you?
I said personalization before. I would also say just utilizing technology as far as location, utilizing more location technology, delivering a better customer experience. Like, let's say someone places an order digitally. How can we notify the user, like what place are they? Like, has the order been started? Is your order going to be delivered soon? Is your order ready for pickup? Utilizing contextualized restaurant experiences with beacons and technologies. Even as far as like if I enter a restaurant, I might get a text message reminding me to utilize my use my rewards, scan for rewards, so that way I can develop more points based on the purchases that I make. So getting an alert as soon as you enter the building would be pretty key.
Very cool. No, I appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much for sharing that around the personalization and localization aspect of it. So, we've covered a huge amount of ground here. I think all three of your perspectives are so interesting because it's really this range from semiconductors, right? Like a fully, how does design impact this very real world, but kind of hidden aspect of our lives, through to fast casual restaurants with you, Limser, and Puff, all the way to digitally native and with nonprofit organizations. So I appreciate all of your perspectives. This has been super interesting to hear about the impact of design and how you have been addressing specific challenges to you. So thank you very much for your time and have a great day.